So again, you have $1,600. It's up to you. He's going for it. 600.
Okay.
No.
The bar has been set low today. No matter what we do in the next 25 minutes, it will be smarter than that.
Yeah, we're going to be okay compared to that guy. Unbelievable. Clearly thrown off by the word desire in there. Got his mind going in the wrong place. Maggie, I thought about that. He had one letter to get. I went through the whole alphabet. There
Nothing
was only
worked.
2 letters that formed words there.
What's that?
K, which he used, and M, which was the right
The real one.
answer.
Stella.
50-50. Sorry, bud.
My favorite part of that clip now is the gasp from the audience.
And how about Pat Sajak?
No. All right.
Yeah, we're going to be doing okay.
I think today we got this one.
Hey, we got a new showdown in the NBA.
Yeah.
Not talking about the fight last night, Serge Ibaka and Robin Lopez. We're actually, punches were thrown. We're talking about LeVar versus the King. Yes, LeVar Ball has now come at LeBron James. The father of Lonzo was on Chris Broussard's podcast where he said his children were set up for better success in the NBA than LeBron's kids. Said LeVar, you got LeBron. It's going to be hard for his kids because they're going to look at them like, you got to be just like your dad. And after a while, that pressure starts sitting on you like, why do I got to be just like him? What? Can't I just be me? And then they're going to be like, oh, you're soft. You're not that good, because the expectation is very, very high.
Well, little did LeVar, I think, know that LeBron and the Cavaliers were incidentally practicing on UCLA's campus. So LeBron was asked about the comments, and James did not mince any words. He said, keep my kid's name out of your mouth. Keep my family out of your mouth. This is dad to dad. It's a problem now. All right, Ryan, we've seen LeVar Ball spar with Charles Barkley, with Michael Jordan, but did he cross the line by talking about LeBron's children?
I think he did, and I'm going to speak from a dad's perspective here that, yeah, you don't know my kids, don't start talking about my family or my kids. And that's it. He could have been fine if he just said, you know, children of some of the game's greats, but he singled out LeBron. Hey, that's an offensive. That's putting a target on LeBron, LeBron's family, and I can see where LeBron's coming from, saying, hey, don't put my kids' names in your mouth. You don't know us. Don't talk about us. Now, here's the thing, though. Ball's message isn't all that crazy. What he's basically saying is kids of some of the biggest stars in any sport have an extreme amount of pressure on them. Yeah, they do. He's actually onto something. But, you know, he put the shot was fired towards LeBron, and I think LeBron was justified in his answer.
You know, I think what changes things here with LeVar is he goes from calling out Charles Barkley, who is able to clown himself on TV. He goes after Michael Jordan, saying he could kill him in a one-on-one, which everyone kind of laughs at when he says. But this is now a current NBA player that you're calling out. And to me, that may have ramifications on Lonzo when he gets to the NBA, and then further on with his next 2 kids if they want to go to the NBA. Right now, LeBron James is the biggest star in the sport currently. To start some kind of beef with him, I think that might be a little bit more of a red flag than, say, having a back and forth with Charles Barkley or, you know, claiming you could beat Michael Jordan, which nobody thinks is true. I mean, the irony of this is that LeVar is the one who's being accused of putting so much pressure on his kids, and now he's saying LeBron's kids won't live up to the pressure. I agree with you. That could be true. We all remember Michael Jordan's famous Hall of Fame speech where he says to his children sitting in the front row, I wouldn't want to be you. It's very hard to follow in a famous parent's footsteps for sure, but I don't think that LeVar saying it, as you said, with LeBron's name attached to it, was smart. I think this is something he could come to regret.
Yeah, and talk about putting extra pressure on your kid. I mean, Lonzo already has the pressure on him because of what his dad's been doing. Now he's calling out the best player in the game, arguably, who may face his son a year from now. So picture that game, the pressure, the hype, the media attention, when Lonzo, he may be a 6th or 7th man on that team as a rookie, facing LeBron and the Cavs. Of course, dad's going to be in the arena. Of course, dad's going to do pregame interviews. You're setting your son up for a big failure there, putting him up against the game's best and calling him out like this.
Yeah, I just feel like the story now is starting to change with LeVar. I mean, there's no doubt that LeBron is the most powerful player in the NBA right now. You don't want to poke that bear.
No, and you know what? LeBron could have easily just ignored him and paid him no mind. You know, LeVar is kind of turning into a gnat. It's just like, enough already. Someone ignore this guy so he stops talking. But I think until UCLA is eliminated, we're not going to see that.
No.
Yeah, all right, we'll keep it with the NBA, Maggie. Steve Kerr was asked about Commissioner Adam Silver's memo that implored owners to be involved in the decision on whether to rest superstars in primetime games. Kerr said the schedule is so exhausting that he would take a pay cut to reduce the amount of games from 82 to 75. That's nice of Steve to say, but are players going to take a pay cut? Are owners going to take a cut from the box office? I don't see that happening.
Listen, you'll remember in the last collective bargaining agreement, the players were already forced and asked to give up already to make it more of an even split when the players used to have, I think it was like a 57% stake in revenue share. And so they already feel like the players do that they've already given back. Why do they want to give back more? And it's not even just the players you're going to have to convince. Like you said, the owners, why would they want to give up potential home games that are major revenue streams for them? I mean, I understand, obviously, that the television rights do bring in the most money, but they don't want empty arenas, and they don't want games taken off the schedule where that's concessions, that's parking, it's TV dollars, too. Everything is wrapped into it. I think you're going to have a tougher time, or the toughest time, convincing the owners to make the schedule shorter. Yeah,
it's going to have to be a group effort. Everyone's going to have to be on the same page here. The coaches are saying the right thing, saying they sympathize with the fans, but they're more concerned with winning. That's it. The owners are really more concerned with the fans because there's a lot of money involved there. Rick Carlisle, interesting quote yesterday. He's the coaches representative for the Coaches Association, said people need to understand that in the present structure of the schedule, there are just times when it really is the right thing to do, and that's giving his guys some rest. So they're all calling out the present structure, saying change needs to be made. That seems to be the unified opinion right now.
We are going to get a little bit of a change. The schedule, the league year is going to expand by, they think, 7 to 10 days next year. So do you think that's going to help? Is that going to solve this problem?
If it alleviates the back-to-backs. I did a little digging and looking up some of the back-to-backs and how many teams have. I was shocked at how many they actually have. The Warriors have 16 back-to-back games scheduled this season. Now, comparatively, the Brooklyn Nets have 10. Is that fair? I know they're a West Coast team, so travel's a little bit more extensive. They want a certain area of the country. They play 2 games in 2 nights and move on. But if you want to avoid this, stop giving your best teams back-to-backs, especially when they're leading into a primetime game. That might solve the problem right there. Those 10 days might help alleviate that. A little more wiggle room for the schedule makers in the NBA.
Well, listen, they made changes around the All-Star break, and I think that all of the players and coaches really appreciated that, giving a couple extra days for breather, to get your legs under you.
Yeah, they get a week now,
to have a little bit of rest. Yeah. I think what it really is, it's the back-to-backs for sure. I also think they need to look at how many time zones are you crossing in any given amount of time, and then also how many days away from home are you in any given road trip. I mean, the Warriors always have these big 10-day, 12-day long East Coast swings. They have one once every year. Maybe you alleviate that by breaking it up. Maybe you don't make the team go through all 3 time zones, back and forth, and maybe that helps with the schedule as well.
I heard an interesting idea from a report, I believe from USA Today, saying where to help the overall product, if these guys are going to be a healthy scratch, make them suit up. Make them go through all the game day activities, the pregame press conference, signing autographs, warming up in their uniform to at least get the fans a little bit of an experience to see them in the arena. I hadn't thought of that yet. It's interesting, and their take was, you put them in uniform, those guys are going to want to play because they're athletes and they want to be out on the floor rather than sitting on the bench.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that would work.
If I paid premium dollars for a front row seat, do I care to watch Steph Curry warm up and then sit?
You want more than a picture of Steph Curry. You want to see him going up and down the court.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Well, we were talking about LeVar Ball earlier about, really fathers coaching their sons. So what is it like to coach a son who makes it to the NBA? Well, earlier today, I caught up with a coaching legend, Hall of Fame coach Bob Hurley Sr. of St. Anthony's High School in New Jersey. Coach, rough weekend of the tournament. All of your St. Anthony's alums end up exiting, and this is just the unforgiving nature of the NCAA tournament. Who took it the worst, your son Danny or Marcus McDuffie, who was playing for Wichita State, who got upended by Kentucky?
I would say probably Marcus, because when you're as a player and you're in the middle of it, you think you can, and they could have continued to go. I think Danny was so excited that Rhode Island was in the tournament, and I know that was a disappointing loss, but he was so pleased with the performance of the kids during the the A-10 and also the 2 games in the tournament.
And they played Oregon so tough.
Yep.
They absolutely did. What is it like for you to see Danny now finally getting some national recognition, where for so long it's always been about Bobby?
Yeah, well, he's been a coach for a long time. He did a great job in high school, and he, did a nice job of building Wagner, and he put all the pieces in. And this run to the A-10 championship was great. And it kind of, when you have a run like that at that time, when all the attention is on the NCAA upcoming tournament, and then to go out and beat, to win the first game against Creighton, and to be leading for most of the game against Oregon, it's absolutely great. I think each day now, I think you suffer less from the loss and you look back at the accomplishment.
How can you tell the dynamic has changed between Danny and Bobby as they've both now started to excel as Division I coaches?
Well, they're still very close, still talk daily. They each have their own problems now, because we're all dealing with college-age guys. So I think they go back and forth and bounce things off each other. And then, Bobby was there for the game on Friday against Creighton, and he was sitting in an unusual seat because he's watching the tournament. It was just 2 years ago we were watching Buffalo playing West Virginia in the tournament, and he was coaching. So it's been a great run.
Yeah, I mean, they're dealing with college-age coaches now. It's something that you never really decided to dip your toe into. You spent 50 years at St. Anthony's, 45 with the varsity. I know you're in the Hall of Fame, so it's hard to have professional regrets when you get to a level like that, but it's March Madness. Do you ever wish that you had taken a chance on a college job?
I always say I love college basketball, but I really enjoy watching it from afar. It's just the pressure on those coaches is unbelievable. In high school, the pressure you have is self-imposed. In college, it's the alums, it's recruiting, it's expectation, it's the media. There's so many things going on. And in high school, it's changed, but it's still kind of anonymous.
Yeah. How did it change for you as a father as Bobby goes to Duke, they start winning, they start getting more national recognition? We weren't living in the age of social media then, which would have been, I'm sure, much different. But as a father, was it challenging as your son starts to get more and more notoriety?
Yeah, it was unusual because high school basketball had some attention. And then when he got to Duke, they got to the Final Four as freshmen, and then they won it 2 years in a row. And the attention between he and Grant Hill, Christian Laettner, Coach K, they became like rock stars. And it was fun to watch, but it was difficult to be able to value it because coaching in high school, you sometimes you'll have 2 newspapers at a game. A
little bit different.
Yes.
And as this team became one of the most beloved in some circles and also one of the hated in many circles, as a father, did you ever have the urge to sort of stick up or defend your child?
No, I think when they were playing, I didn't see so many games with Duke. I'd see the NCAA tournament, some of the NCAA tournament games. I rarely saw a regular season game because I was coaching at St. Anthony's. So I kind of watched it far. I was more annoyed with like a color guy in a game who was critical of performance. I wanted to talk to more than anything else that was going on.
Do you ever find any of those guys later on and say, hey, you really hosed my kid?
No, I think because good judgment gets you to say, I better keep this just to myself right now. I don't think I should be going in that area.
If there was Twitter back then, we had to keep you away from the phone and from the computer. It's interesting now, you see a father like LeVar Ball, and he's got these 3 unbelievably talented kids. Do you ever have a parent who was so involved to the point that LeVar is right now?
No, I think he's truly the exception. And there are parents that are way more involved, but we try to guide them into getting into a seat and sitting down and enjoying the experience, not trying to coach them and not worrying about like every possession, but try to sit back. And when we've been able to do that, and I think we've done a pretty good job with it, when we've been able to do it, they do come to us at the end of their careers, and they say they understand and they appreciate it, and they think they've had a chance to enjoy it a little bit more than if you try to micromanage this thing for years, and you never live in the moment. And the big regret's going to be it ends so quickly. All of a sudden, like this year's seniors heading off to college, and you're going to look back and say, gee, where did it go? And I never really enjoyed it because I was always worried about the next shot, the accomplishments, where's this heading, and you don't enjoy the journey.
We're seeing LeVar is now calling out the high school coach. I mean, meddling really in what the high school coach's role is. I doubt any parent would have the nerve to do that with you since you're such a legend. But have you heard of that before when parents try to get a coach fired because the way they coach their kid?
Unfortunately, it's becoming more and more prevalent. Morgan Wooten, who's the great coach at DeMatha High School, has 14 points for being a key parent. So we just make copies of what Coach Wooden used to distribute, and we give it to the families. And it's our telling them how we think they should take care of this season coming up. And if they have any problems with that, then they should maybe have the child play someplace else. Yeah. That eliminates all of the back and forth stuff. We don't have meetings. We have meetings with our kids all the time, but we're keeping the parents out of the loop, make the child responsible for telling the parents what the coaches have said to them.
You think that his kids are going to start feeling this pressure? I mean, I know every basketball player is different and everyone's makeup is different, but is this going to start to get to them a little?
Well, the kids say that this is the way they've grown up, that this has been going on all the time. But I would just feel bad if this is the way they've grown up because, you know, like every once in a while you want to get off the basketball and you just want to, you know, say something about something removed from basketball, you know. It's way too much building up these comparisons. I don't know how many friendships you can have when you're comparing your children to the icons in the sport. They can't come out looking good in those, and they've got to feel the pressure of the statements fathers made, regardless of what the kids say.
Sure. You've coached over so many eras. You presided over the prep to pro, where you didn't have to go to college, and now with one and done. 10 years ago, Lonzo Ball wouldn't even go to college. He'd probably just go straight to the NBA. Maybe Kyle Anderson, who was a player of yours, may have not gone to college. Right. He could have just gone to the NBA. If we're looking at it really objectively, for the kids who are absolutely elite, should they just be able to make the jump and forego college completely?
Yeah, I think now the kid is, because of their AAU experiences, I've changed my view on this. I think that the kids have done so much traveling. They've played against the top kids in the country so often that, and they're brought to the marketplace at such an early age now that an 18-year-old who perhaps has been geared towards this is not like a tennis kid who goes to IMG and he's practicing. He's down there with you know, the pros at a very early age. I don't think it's that different. You know, and I would have said, you know, for the longest time, you need to go to school first. But that's probably more socialization now than it is the sport itself.
That's really interesting that you change your view on that.
Yeah, and I just think it's the way society's changed. The position that these kids are in now, they're not like the anonymous kid from the 80s where there were great players, like a David Rivers that played for me, you know, played in the McDonald's game and did really well in the McDonald's game, and nobody knew who he was. And now there isn't a kid in high school that doesn't have highlights available, you know, at the drop of a hat. You can see anybody play.
Or the scouts are recognizing them at the age of 12 and saying they're the next great thing. Yeah. Coach Mike Krzyzewski inducted you into the Hall of Fame. I know you guys are close, but honestly, were you a little shocked when he started recruiting one-and-done players?
It's the nature. Yeah, you know, my confusion is I don't know how you do it. I understand you have to do it. But, like, to build a team, the continuity is just not there. You know, you're trying to put together a group of people, and the kid is just learning your system, and he's gone. And if you get to the tournament and you're playing as they played a physical South Carolina team, they're all primarily older kids that they're playing against. And the younger kids, as good as they are, in the NCAA tournament, it's rarely does a freshman dominate.
Yep, it's very true. The rare freshman can dominate the field. Is there a Coach K and Bobby Hurley story that we may not know? We're coming up on, gosh, 25 years since the '92 team.
I think the thing that my wife and I appreciate the most is about the door was always open. If there was a problem, the door was always open for Bobby to go sit down with Coach. And unfortunately for Coach, he felt the same way about parents calling. So I know in freshman year, my wife called several times just about bad haircuts that she saw on TV games. And she was talking to Mike about, like, how can you let him get haircuts like that? And I know he would be really nice on the phone and then hang up and just say to himself, this is what I have to talk about. But that's what happens.
I'm not worried about North Carolina right now. I'm worried about Bobby Hurley's haircut.
But that's what happens when Mom calls.
That's what happens when Mom calls. Okay, St. Anthony's, this has been a labor of love for you. For 50 years you've been at the school, and right now the school needs some help. There is a GoFundMe page, and you're looking for a pretty big sum of money, $200,000 to keep the doors open. You need donations by April 5th. The school has been in tough situations before. What's making this moment different or more dire for St.
Well, I guess, just the nature of the tuition we charge for the kids that come to our school and what it costs us to educate the kids is a gap of almost $8,000 per kid. So on a yearly basis, you're raising that gap. So, if it's 200 kids, you're looking at, $1.6 million. And we don't have, like in bigger schools, or like more private schools, we don't have an endowment. So we're, like it's a little schools are, we're year by year. So once we finish raising money for 1 year, we're back to work again. And, as a coach, I've always felt that, the kids that I was working with have always been worth it. But I became the president of the school 3 years ago. So now I deal with all the kids in school. And you find out so many more stories and how the kids really need this education they're getting and that they're going to, we've had 100% college acceptance by all of our students for about 20 years in a row. So the work that's done is great and you'd like to sustain it, but you understand that maybe you can't do it forever. And, so we'll continue to battle and we hope that people that identify with, either Catholic education or the inner city plight of kids in the inner city, and people show interest.
What would people be losing? What would the basketball community be losing, and the community at large, if St. Anthony's closes its doors?
Well, in the town, I think, as cities have their ups and downs with, crime and politics and unemployment, all kinds of adult problems. Year in and year out, you'll have 50 or 60 kids who graduate from school, and they'll be heading off into college, and the majority of them, graduate from college and come back into the town, and most of the kids are not moving away from Jersey City. They're coming back, and helping their families and giving back to our school however they can, and so it's a good moment to see what happens to them, and that would be lost because you'd lose this little school atmosphere that the kids are comfortable in.
Coach Bob Hurley, a Hall of Famer, wish you the best of luck in finding this funding and keeping the doors of St. Anthony's open.
Thank you so much.
If we were going to reseed the NCAA tournament for the Sweet 16, here is my biggest riser and my biggest faller. My pick for who would rise the most, I'm going to say Michigan, coming in as a number 7 seed. Not only playing well, making great shots, exploiting matchups. You saw what the big fella Mo Wagner, as I call him, Mo Buckets, did against Louisville. They're much better on the defensive end, but I think we all see the obvious here in that this is kind of a team of destiny. They'd actually been playing great basketball before the Big Ten tournament, but you take what happened with their plane accident and then winning the Big Ten tournament title and now being in the Sweet 16 playing so well, and now they get an Oregon team that is missing a key player in Chris Boucher, and just the overall way that college basketball is going in terms of the way that it's officiated and played. It's a much more up-tempo, offensive-oriented type of game. Michigan plays right into that. So as a 7 seed, I think if we had to shake it up again, Michigan would be higher. In terms of the team that would fall, the one that does come to mind is Gonzaga, because of the way they coughed up that 22-point lead against Northwestern. Northwestern's a pretty good team, but they're not nearly as good as West Virginia. And, the defensive speed and pressure that West Virginia is going to put on Gonzaga is going to be like nothing that the Zags have faced during the course of the season. Gonzaga still my pick to go to the Final Four. I thought they deserved a 1 seed, but certainly all the 1 seeds, certainly the surviving 1 seed, Gonzaga to me looked the least impressive in the first week.
Let's be clear, USA-Honduras is as close to a must-win World Cup qualifier as the Americans have faced in a very long time. The U.S. is one of just 7 countries to have competed in every men's World Cup going back to 1990, But that streak is in real danger after 2 straight losses to start the final round of qualifying in November led to the firing of Jurgen Klinsmann. Back in charge is Bruce Arena, the most successful U.S. men's coach of all time, who led the Americans to the quarterfinals of World Cup 2002. His challenge now is straightforward: qualify for Russia 2018 by any means necessary. Remember what he preached in the locker room before the U.S. beat Portugal in World Cup 2002. First tackle, first foul, first shot, first goal. That's exactly what happened that day. Arena has come back to restore something the U.S. had lost. A team that's hard to play against and better than the sum of its parts. The journey starts this week.
Maggie, seeing that, one word comes to mind
Yeah.
if they were to lose that game. Disaster for the U.S. men's national team.
Yeah.
If they were to miss the World Cup, a program that's supposed to be continually trending in a certain direction, maybe the last 10, 15 years, this would be a mess, especially after missing the Olympics.
Well, they've never been shut out of a World Cup.
Yeah.
I mean, this would be the first time the United States has always qualified. So, yes, this would be a major step back on the heels, as you said, of missing the Olympics. Not good. I'm feeling nervous for them.
Yeah, seriously. I guess Grant got us a little nervous and intense
Sweating
about
over
this
here.
game.
Sweating against Honduras. Whew, it's going to be a nail biter. That's going to do it for this Wednesday edition of SI Now. We'll be back tomorrow, of course, at 10:30 a.m. Eastern with a fresh look at all the latest sports news. But until then, stick with SI.com and don't forget to follow us on Twitter at SI Now Live. There's the handle right for you. Have a great afternoon. We'll see you tomorrow.